think that we should be in the frequency, not our biological frequency. Biological, as in we have a life, is biology. Yeah, so life is biology. Reptilian, fight, flight, freeze, and we can be in that energy, but that isn't us. That's the car we drive.
You're listening to Getting It Wrong to Get It Right.
Yes, folks, and welcome to another show here at Getting It Wrong to Get It Right, which those words echo in my head every day because life is a journey and we're still learning. This week, I have Lee Tunny-Ware on. Lee's been an inspiration to so many people, not only in Ireland, but around the world. He started his entrepreneurship as 12. He beat me by 1 year. As I say, I sold my first product at 13 and I was hooked on sales from there. So 1 year. So I'm lagging behind him. He's got a workshop as well, which is an entrepreneur community. He does a lot of charity work. An inspiration, as I said, to so many people. Today, I'm going to ask Lee what drives him, because the big thing that everyone wants to know is about fulfillment. And even with my journey, what I've gone on through life, and especially in the last couple of years as well, I'm starting to really understand a lot and what my purpose is. So Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here. Lot there. Where do we go from here, mate? Now we've done the introduction. Is it finished?
It's over now. And that was a lovely conversation. Thank you.
That's right. That was brilliant.
Lee, if I was to ask you one question, if you weren't doing what you were doing, what would you want to do?
It's a very good question, Joe. And I like to be totally authentic and transparent. So when I give my answer, it's going to sound like I've evaded the question. I'm 60 years old now. I spent a long time doing what I did want to do to get to do what I do, which is enable other people, I suppose, not to make the mistakes or have the problems and the challenges I've had in life. So that's where my passion and purpose is. I get great fulfillment for seeing others succeed.
Okay, well then, if you were to go back in time and there's one practice, not piece of learning, but one skill set that you know now, and if you could give that back to yourself at 13 and say, look, do this, what would it be?
Now, I'd have to change your language slightly, if that's with permission, because a skill set is something I do in my head. I'm not saying in reality, but in Lee Tunny-Ware's world, from his skin in, a skill set is something I do, like cutting a piece of wood, different things like that. An awareness and a developed self is a different thing. Somewhat here is a skill set. So if I could go back in time, the superpower or the insight I would give myself would be this, is that it took me a lot of years to work this out, is when you're not fulfilled, when you're not fulfilled, the awareness I got was I was fragmented through time, emotionally, psychologically, either in the past or the future. So if guilt exists, then my energy is somewhere in shame for the past, because guilt is present to past. If I'm in worry, doubt, fear, or concern, then I'm in the future. So presence would be the gift I would give myself. And that is the biggest superpower you can have. Because if you're present, it means you have awareness, not self-control or self-development. It means you're not reacting in triggers, which is trauma, drama, armor of life, which is present to past. You're not in worry, doubt, fear, or concern, which is present to future, or future to present, depending on which way you look at it, which means you're totally separate from all the social construct, which means you can make decisions for yourself. However, the piece that I would add on to that for clarity is self-development, or everything for self, can be very selfish. And that falls into the I, as in I or me. I in Latin is ego. So to not be in the I, so this comes back to your first question, really, it's have the awareness that fulfillment in life is an ecosystem. It's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not an I fulfilling prophecy. It is an ecosystem, which means you have to be connected to others' purpose and passion. We talk about active listening or different things like that, but that really means we have to be present and aware of who I am and what my skills are, so I'm not moving into BS, but also to realize that, in a sense, when we judge other people, we're actually blocking them and blocking ourselves. So to see other people, not as they show up with language or action or do or skill set, to see the energy that is the essence of them and to remain present in yours. And then you have a true connection. So that would be, that in my world, took me probably 50 years to learn.
Yeah, I'm probably there with you as well. Judgment is something that we all look at, and I spoke this on other shows about, I think it's more so prevalent when we're in our 50s that we learn to look at our guilt and shame, because once you look at your guilt and shame from past, you're released, as it loses it. Once you face it in the mirror, it no longer holds its power.
100%.
Yeah, and I also, just in what you're talking about there, you talk about the self and the I and then the energy. Are you spiritual?
Yes and no, because spiritual can have a different intention.
Well, what is your intention? Or when you hear the word spiritual, what to you does it represent as you?
Well, spiritual means to me, and presence, same thing. Every part of my existence since the dawn of my conception of the universe is serving me and others to the highest standard. That would be spiritual. It means I don't need morality or commandments or anything like that to know what's right from wrong. And right from wrong isn't necessarily a judgment, as in 2 and 2 is 4, and 2 and 2 is 5. That isn't, in a sense, the good or bad, the yin or yang of life. I think yin and yang is a collaborative energy. I do believe that there is something far greater than us, and I do know that when every part of our existence is in the present heartbeat and breath, many utilize spiritual teachings or meditation to do that. But I think that form of development is a disconnection. I think that we should be in the frequency, not our biological frequency. Biological, as in we have a life, is biology. Yeah. So life is biology. Reptilian, fight, flight, freeze, and we can be in that energy, but that isn't us. That's the car we drive. So our physical being is not me.
Yeah, it's a me too.
Yeah. So spiritual, yes, but my own definition of it would be that the purest part of me communicates and holds the line. Doesn't mean I don't debate with people, or it doesn't mean that I accept things. It means that I look at things from the purest form to the best of my ability, so I see all sides and I don't judge. I assess the outcome that people want, or the outcome, like if there's a conflict, I already know that there's a conflict, there's going to be no good outcome. So there's no point in me fighting my corner. So it's utilizing that spiritual part, that chi, that essence, to communicate not on my behalf, because I am that essence. So when I'm in that essence, then I'm part of the ecosystem of the universe. If I'm not in that essence, then I'm not fulfilled. If I'm not in that essence, I'm fragmented. If I'm not in that essence, I'm in a thought. If I'm not in that essence, I'm in an emotion. You get my thinking?
Yeah, it's it's where you vibrate. We're vibrational human beings, and the heart is, like bees is 52, hills is 52, and love is 52, and we are vibrating all the time. We're energy.
Oh, definitely.
And I often talk about this, that society makes people react instead of respond. And everything that we see, it's that knee-jerk reaction, or people are, they're fearful, or they get a letter from an establishment or something and they get triggered. They're fighting what's gone outside instead of really focusing on what's on internally. Because I did a TEDx back in 2019, and I spoke about what you're talking about when you figure it out, all the external stuff doesn't matter. And it's only really what's going on internally. And I often say, if someone looks like a guru, walks like a guru, speaks like a guru, they're not a guru.
No, definitely. There's a slight bit I wouldn't change, because I was thinking when you were speaking there, and I was listening to you, and I remember our last podcast, and I was thinking, and I don't want it to sound like I'm always correcting, because I'm not. I'm just hear exactly what you're saying, and I would have the same perspective, the social construct and the pecking order. And I would call that our organic self. Then we have our aware, developed self. There's a few subtleties I would put on it. from my own world out. Not saying I'm right, because a lot of people talk about the matrix or condition or programming, where nothing wrong with that. And in a sense, that language is somewhat correct. However, if you were Chinese and I was English and we had an interpreter, they might have to change the language, because sometimes in different cultures there's different meanings. It means the same thing roughly, but not exactly. So I agree with you entirely. However, to be a sovereign frequency human, some go through life like a bit like playing jazz. It doesn't have the structure, and they think freedom is flow and being able to do what they want. However, if they're reacting or responding, they're still within the frequency of that control, because we're still in the night and day, yin and yang, good and bad, good and evil world, where yin and yang is a collaborative energy, which means in reality, in the truth of what's true, yin and yang is a collaborative energy that creates all life, which means there's no duality. However, when we look at things, we see it as night and day, which that's just the ecosystem of the planet. So a response, I'm still governed by the action, interaction, or communication, which means my frequency could be changed. And now I'm playing on the same, like I'm playing the same music they're playing, just maybe with a different instrument. But because I'm choosing what to do, it seems like we have control of it. However, if I'm responding to a frequency that's come, rather than neutralizing the frequency, then I respond and go in harmony. So, for example, they get two tuning forks, same frequency. You line them up about 6 or 9 inches apart. You hit one, the other one vibrates in, what's the word for it? In synergy with it, or sympathy with it. And humans are a bit like that. When that intentional awareness comes, and it's not a reaction or defense or deflection or denial or avoidance, it's interpreting the frequency into the language, whether it's in a letter, WhatsApp, text, whatever, or spoken word. It's being able to leave it on the outside, a bit like somebody knocking at your door. Just because they're knocking don't mean to say you open it. Doesn't mean you hide from it. You can choose. So to respond, to me, would be a bit like opening the door. To me, first of all, is to leave the noise on the outside. Now, if somebody says something, does something, whatever, then I choose, which means in my not respond, I choose the outcome. First of all, Stephen Covey's words, well, start with the end in mind. What's the outcome, regardless of what the situation is? What's the outcome I want from this? And how will that keep me in harmony with my energy, frequency, and my thoughts? Otherwise, other people's energies or frequencies, words, actions, interactions, or they don't say nothing. They don't send you a Christmas present, whatever. And you harmonize with that frequency, which means you lose self. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's like everything is about communication, and how you will deliver your thoughts. It will resonate with someone, or how I may deliver my thoughts will resonate with someone else, and that's what makes it beautiful, because we are all individual, and I think everyone's on a journey. But I get it, and I'm practicing this more and more each day, and I'd like to share it with you if that's okay, Clee. I let go. So if something comes up, instead of me going, oh my God, or even speaking about it, because as you say, speaking gives something power, I don't even speak about it. If it's of negative in any way, I just go, okay, this is going to work out. And it fixes itself right at the final minute, second, because I have trust in my own energy, divinity, or whatever that may be. People will call it, that I know that it'll work out. So I practice this for good and bad on a daily basis. And it's a muscle that needs to be worked on, that anyone listening to this conversation that wants to try and say, oh, I want to do that, doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But once you get into that driving seat of the energy that you hold in this meat suit, it all becomes very fun. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that entirely. A couple of little nuances from my world, not to disagree with you, just...
Well, you are older, so I'll have to tell you. Now, more hours in the seat.
Bang on. It's just little nuances that misled me in my world. And once I realised them, because like you said, it does take time. I think the awareness takes time. I think once you have the frequency, you are the frequency, which means that's my presence, which means by me doing it all the time, might appear that I'm practicing it, but because I am it. So just a couple of little bits, because language to me, words that we express or thoughts that we think are external. They're nothing to do with me. I never came into this world with that pre-installed dictionary of life. So language is for me to communicate to another human being. It's not for me to communicate to me because I can't communicate to me because I'm one entity. If I can communicate to me, then I've separated myself, which means I'm in the yin and yang world. So trust is an external word for something or someone, and it's present to future. So if I need trust, then I already have a conflict. Because trust seems to be the benchmark everybody works towards, or know, like, and trust. But trust really is a trauma box. It's a protection, because if we have honor and integrity and we know the human's character and they not wearing a mask, or we have the awareness to realize they're wearing a mask, and it's not an opinion, and it's not a judgment, it's just awareness. A judgment is more, there's a sentence after a judgment. See, there's an impact. That means the frequency has a vibration that creates, manifests. If there's no judgment, then there's just awareness, which means there's no action or reaction. So to trust something, or to trust myself, I cannot trust myself because I trust from within myself. I'm not saying anybody else can. I don't know how to. I cannot believe in myself because belief is a future-based concept, and it's for external world use, present to future. Belief is a virtual concept. What I mean by that is people tell us what they're going to do, and if we can harmonize that frequency in us, and we can put the visual and the physical and the intellectual data on that and the emotional data on that, and I'll go, yeah, I believe in you, Joe. What that actually means, and the language to me is very transparent. I believe in you. It doesn't mean I believe you. It means I believe in you. That means I believe in the version of the future you're going to. When I align with that by believing, I actually universally open doors for you, because how does the universe police who gets what? But I cannot believe in me because I believe from within me. I'm the human that has the thought. I'm not the thought. I'm the human that has the emotion. I'm not the emotion. I'm the human that has the experience, but I'm not the experience. If I become the experience, then I'm cool. If I become the thought, I can take the thought and reason it into an opinion, and I can take it from the head-top computer into the right brain, and can I get clarity and see it? Yes. And then I can take it below the neck into the emotions, and that's where it becomes a belief, because a belief is not a truth. If it was the truth, it'd be called the truth. If you look to the belief this way, the euro coin is the truth. A belief is 99 cents down to 51 cents. At 50 cents, it's no longer a belief because it cannot transcend, because there will be another opposing piece of data, which means that you go into two minds, which means we don't know which one, so we can't believe at all. But as soon as it goes to 51 cents, as soon as it has a higher value emotionally and psychologically, then it becomes a belief, and that's where it becomes a controlling factor. But belief is only utilized to navigate the future. So, but beliefs are the barriers to the truth. If they were the truth, they'd be called true, but they're in fact beliefs. So the truth is, you breathe for you, you think for you, you decide for you. Whatever you decide or whatever you think, you create, and that becomes you.
Yes. Two questions. One is, let me say this first. When I give a talk, I usually tell people that your thoughts and your beliefs are not your own. And the reason is because everything that goes around them, they pick in. And the only real true feeling that they are, the only true thing that they are, is their feeling, and that is their compass or their navigation. You're a big supporter and helper to entrepreneurs and business owners. You and me have been on a similar journey in different parts of the world. We both are dyslexic, which I think gave us superpowers to actually to see things. When we look at a business or make a call, it's, I think it's a gift that we have. When you were communicating with business owners, entrepreneurs, do they struggle with the communication?
Well, they do, but I suppose that's where, in some ways, I help them a lot. Because when we speak, what are we speaking for? So we're either speaking to create, manifest, align, and collaborate, or we're speaking to a fear, a doubt, or insecurity. So what part of the human is speaking, and what part of the human are they speaking to? Too many people debate or interact, which is intellect to intellect, left brain to left brain. Someone is talking visionary terms. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense to you as left brain? In NLP, we call auditory. And in the visual, they would call visual. So if I wanted you to see visual things in your mind, then I might like talk, like, for instance, the tree, and I'd tell you in a story. But the reason where a story comes in, it brings the kinesthetic in. So you've got the left brain, right brain, and the emotion. However, there's actually 5 parts. Now, in NLP, they would talk about VARC, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. You could bring the olfactory and gustatory systems into communication, so you could talk through universal experiences that people know and have experienced. What too many of us try to do is explain. When we talk through universal experiences, or we go into a memory and we utilize that in our communication, depending whether it's a business conversation or a business interaction, because too many business people are presenting rather than communicating. They're on show, they're trying to put their best foot forward, they want to look professional, they want to install an avatar into people, that those people get a concept of that human and then have a value for that human, and then have that credibility and reputation to go forward. But that isn't authentic. That's a performance. It's a form of persuasion, influence, or, depending on the level you're doing it, manipulation. Authentic communication and speaking from every part of you. So it's heard. If I'm an intellectual speaker, then I'll speak to the left brain. Systems, processes, procedures, orders. A bit like the accountant. If I'm speaking to the visual side, so for instance, if I'm doing a vision speech, then I'll speak to the future, but I'll also showcase it where they can see it. So if you look in scripture, or even with Martin Luther King, there's real, in the I Have a Dream speech, is you've got a lot of visual connotations in it. People can see it. So the words aren't visual, but the words have to generate a visual image. It's a sign of a good iconic speech. But I'm still in only left brain. I'm over an educator, which means I'm talking left brain to left brain, auditory to auditory. In my visual design, the artist, I'm speaking to the right brain. Then I might go into the emotion, the empathy of the story, so they get that empathetic emotional connection, because most say people buy through emotion and justify with logic. Those are the 3 mainstream ones that you're going to communicate to: emotion, the visual aspect of the human, and auditory. However, there's 2 main parts missing. So if I'm an empathetic speaker, I speak to the emotions. If I'm a motivational speaker, which is the next one, I'm speaking to the physiology, the motor, the drive, the action, the do of the human. If I'm an inspirational speaker, I'll speak to the chi, the spirit of the human. If I'm a transformational speaker, I speak to all 5 parts at the same time. That means I have to speak from a frequency where every part of my existence is aligned. I haven't got a thought that disagrees with my emotion. I haven't got a thought that disagrees with what I imagine, or any combination of those. I haven't got an emotion that disagrees with my thought. My physiology, my reptilian brain, fight, flight, freeze, vagus nerve, is not interfering in my frequency, and I'm not in fear, because fear is from the reptilian brain. But the essence of fear, most know, is not fear. So worry is not fear, but it's a form of the energy of fear. True fear for the vagus nerve, fight, flight, freeze, reptilian response is when the life form is under threat. It's going to be physically harmed, maimed, killed. That's true fear. So anyone that's fallen off a bike, fallen off a horse, been involved in a car accident, fallen out of a tree, they know the essence of fear, because most interpret fear like it's a light feeling. I feel like I'm scared. I feel like it's I'm fearful of the outcome. When the light work comes in, it means not in the essence of fear. And it's Tom Jones' song. It's called, what is it? I Will Never Fall in Love Again. If you listen to the words or the lyrics of it, it's the first part of the song is showcased perfectly. Past, present, future. What too many people don't realize, in my opinion, is when they speak, they're speaking for one reason: to change the future, but failing to realize that they're being dictated to by the version of the future they don't want. And they're trying to dictate through the version of the future most people expect, which is a pure communication. They're trying to communicate through opinions, beliefs, emotions, to change what? To change the outcome. Or they're just agreeing, which isn't really a communication, it's just an agreement. But if we are looking as a visionary to change, to lead, to inspire, to motivate, then we're only doing that for one reason. We're either doing it from the self, the I, which means I'm trying to make my future better, which is selfish, really. My future better for what reason? However, if I go to the next level to make others people's futures better, then it's an ecosystem. So the better I communicate, the more impact my communication has, the more effect it has, the more it gets passed, not for my ego, for my fame, for my fortune, but for their presence, for their peace, for their families, for their love. So their touch is better, their kiss is better. Profits in life are for what reason? So success is anywhere beyond the survival mode. If we can just pay the bills, pay the mortgage, and make ends meet, and maybe a bit for holiday and kids' shoes, whatever, and we can do that, that's success for some people. But we're still caught in foraging, hunting, and getting coal or wood for the fire. Yet success lives beyond what the life form needs or the life form's family needs. Success is the other side of that parameter, the other side of the threshold, because then you have some form of sovereignty and freedom. It means you can take care of all the everyday stuff and you're not worried or concerned and caught up in the system, let's say. But when you get into success, all people want, I mean, at the end of it, you can't take the money with you. Can't take the big house with you. And bear in mind, I'm speaking from a place of money, don't hear that from ego, and the big house. So I'm telling you, the other side of being successful, that is important, but that isn't the goal. What's important is once you're the other side of it, can you lower the ladder down and utilize communication to transform them in a way that's congruent with the future they.
Yeah, I'd use the word realization. Scribbled something down the other day, and I think it's connected with what you said there. And it's to do with, I just scribbled it down and called it the 3F. And one was faith. That could be spiritual faith, but believing in something. And I know we're choosing the words believing, but an inner peace. The second F is family. I know you have a big family, 9 kids, and I have 4, and I believe strongly in the family unit. And an amazing wife and great children, and I'm drawn to that, and being the protector and the nurturer and everything within that as well. And the family unit is very strong. And the third F is fitness. And that is, we have to be mental and physical fit to have that energy to move forward, to achieve what we feel is necessary for us to achieve. And when I wrote the 3 of them down, it was related. The feeling that was coming through to me was related to business, success, fulfillment. And these are my 3. They could be someone else. Anything could be someone else. What's happened, and I've said this in the beginning, when you go through business and when you come what you mark as successful, the nice house, the money, the happiness, the joy, the fulfillment, something happens within us that it's unexplainable. And I can't explain it. And I don't try to explain it because I can't. But all those stuff, external stuff, even those YouTube videos or the education or all them, they all sort of no longer have, they're relevant, but they no longer have that need power to watch because you've arrived to a point. And even it was for me that I was in fulfillment, not fulfilled. I was content. And I realized content had no longer served its purpose. And I had to move into something else, which was a higher drive to achieve that place where I could go, you know what, I can retire in a year if I want. But it's the energy. And I think a lot of people are in a way are hoping to do that, especially when they come to, say, entrepreneurial groups and everything. But first they have to walk through that shadow valley of death to actually be able to achieve what you've achieved. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I'd agree with it in principle from my own experience. If you'd asked me that, say, 10 years ago, and don't hear it as in like, I'm just speaking totally transparent. No, I'm not trying to keep adding on. I'm just in me. That was 10 years ago. I would have agreed with you entirely. Then when you're, a lot of the work I do now is with people that want to come along that what some call a journey, which I don't call a journey because I think the word journey or milestone or summit actually calibrates success on the outside, which means now we have these stepping stones, and too many people create goals that they believe are stepping stones, benchmarks, KPIs, milestones they have to reach before they are fulfilled. Where I would flip the whole narrative completely with what I know now. I would say fulfillment comes first and manifestation comes next. However, if you're in the goal setting to create success, the feeling of success, the feeling of belonging, then you're in the medication of success, which means we're medicating our trauma or drama or the lack of pride, lack of purpose, lack of passion to be seen, to be validated, to be famous. But I think it starts with intention, not a think. I know it starts with intention. So if we have a hope, and bear in mind, like nothing wrong with the word faith, but faith is deity language. So nothing wrong with that, especially from the side of the water you and I are from, as in Ireland, that would be a common word. However, for faith to exist, the belief that it won't happen has to exist for faith to exist, which means now I'm caught in a paradox paradigm. If I'm in faith, then I'm waiting for something greater to me to make it happen. But everything I do comes from me. And I need, now, the universal force that makes it happen, I think, is this. First of all, we have to, authenticity, not for reward, authenticity for truth, for honesty, not my truth, as in the truth. The sun will come up tomorrow. I'm going to draw my next breath. Yeah, that's my right hand. There's so many truths around us that we don't need belief nor faith. When we're in the frequency of authenticity and truth, integrity is where all parts of you, thoughts, imagination, emotion, physiology, and spirit are united. Then that is you. If we're not in you and we're in conflict, then we're in conflict in what way? Either in the data in the left brain, we've got fog in the right brain, we're not happy in the emotions, we're not inspired or motivated. The awareness to know what is it that is not fulfilled within me. Once we have that awareness, then if we put a reason on it, well, I'm not fulfilled because Joe said this to me, I'm not fulfilled because I didn't get the promotion, then we are giving resonance to an outside element to dictate to an inside element because we've attached our worth and our value and our essence to outside. So attachment to that, attachment to another human, fine, but attachment to wealth, I think changes our frequency. So to have full alignment, it's very easy, I think. And when we have full alignment with intentional outcome, not for selfish gain, we might say, well, I want to be successful because I want to look after my family. Still selfish gain. An ecosystem, true ecosystem success is more like a tribal mindset. Some of us are more able, capable, skilled, or have different abilities. That doesn't give us the onus or responsibility to make the world a better place for everybody else, but really it should. When we think of an ecosystem that, in a sense, whatever I create or do creates an emotion, an emotional feeling, or a physical feeling, or a spiritual feeling in somebody, as in their pride. Pride is spiritual, as in it's in their essence. If they want to be motivated, driven, then that's in their physiology. So my frequency should be, when I speak to somebody, is to move them out of faith, out of belief, into the true honor and frequency of their essence. So it's no longer a journey, because some can travel that journey in a heartbeat and some can spend a life doing it. But it's not a journey. It's a frequency. It's a vibration. When we speak with intentional language, not control, not inspiration or passion or purpose, we're not looking to control other energies. Other people hear our frequency. And what happens is one of two things. They either take away the organic future that's in the social construct that as the barriers we think we're fighting. They realize this guy or this girl is, they're definitely going to make it. I can hear it in them, which means none of their doubts or fears or insecurity are attached to my future. That's one side of it. Now that just opens up. That's freedom. That's sovereignty. Because if you're not changed, you've already got freedom. Freedom's a biological term. Sovereignty is the universal frequency. Are you free to bring your energy to reality without playing in the parameters or comfort zones of other people's lack of awareness or lack of development? Because most people want us to play within their triggers. Because if I say something to upset somebody, then I've said something to upset somebody. No, I said no, I had no intention of upsetting anybody, but they were upset. That's their trigger. That means they're locked in a frequency. That means they're not developed. They're in their organic unaware self and they put blame and shame on me for upsetting them. When other people align or see a future that's in line with your frequency, when other people align and create a future and imagine concepts of your future, that's quantum manifestation, and that's how the universe works. When others see, they might need to know where you're going, but if your frequency says, I'm free to go anywhere and do anything I want, and they hear nothing inside them that disagrees, and you don't have to tell them, they already know. But all the time we're working on ourselves, then there's something wrong with us, rather than us being in the frequency that is up. Then when we vibrate and communicate from that place, others harmonize, and that's the ecosystem of success.
The word that's popping into my head when you say that is individual.
Well, individual, but that is your frequency, is the harmony. You got to look at life like an orchestra. Otherwise, you're into like no man's an island, but if it's individual, every man's an island.
Yeah, but it's an individual frequencies in harmony, like you said before. The tuning fork all bouncing off each other, but the tuning fork is a tuning fork on its own.
Well, that's the point. My frequency is mine, yours is yours.
Yeah.
And we should all be in harmony. I shouldn't be trying to block your success. I shouldn't even be thinking a bad thing.
You're not thinking. That's what I'm saying. It's you just focus on what you do, because what you do is resonating. It's like those tentacles going out, that energy, and it's affecting other people. It reminds me of a time when we were in COVID, and that time I'd navigate through life and not see anything because I wasn't giving it any energy. And even, the world as we see it is all a distraction, and it's deliberately to keep us in low levels of vibration and fear. The best thing that society can do is just turn their backs on it, because if they turn their back on it, would alchemize.
I'd agree with that. I think there's a slight bit on it, because it can be sounds like governments or whatever are in control of us. So I think it's language itself, because if you think about it this way, so for example, the word Hollywood, or even go to the word currency, doesn't matter. You know why Hollywood is called Hollywood? No. Bear in mind what the two words are. Holly, wood. Years ago in pagan times, there was people that went round and had visions, and they would tell the vision, and they would walk around with a staff that was made from the wood of a holly tree. Now, they would channel this vision, and they would tell the vision. That's why we have television channels, and that's why it's called a vision. Now, currencies, currency, liquid assets, mobile streams of income, you need sales, obviously, to be successful, etc. But that's water language. Even the word bank, riverbank, currency, current of the sea. The word sales comes from the Spanish and Portuguese. The sales on a ship, the more sales you had, the more produce you had to deliver. And when we want our clients, we need to hook them and get them on board. In other words, we don't all on the land, we want them on the water. And even down to our language, as in when we were born, my mother's waters broke. I came down through a birth canal. The doctor delivered me, and I was given a birth certificate. It's all water language.
Yeah, but even if you look at, you were born in a ward, a ward of four.
That's all relevant. However, how do I get sovereignty if that's the case? So that's all real, and language is real. However, I don't have to be governed by it. I can choose to interact or not interact, same as you and go. But we all have that sovereignty. However, if we're on a journey to get it, then while we're getting it, it can seem like a prison sentence. It seems like we have to unprogram ourselves. But all we have to do is intentionally decide what we want and stay in that frequency.
2 questions to ask you before we wrap up. And these, my producer gave us these to ask you. What would you like to be remembered for?
Good question. Never thought about it, to be honest. For being a good father, or if I want to take that outside of my family, for being a good friend. And
the next one, can you name a pivotal moment in your life where you learned a powerful lesson by getting it wrong to get it right?
With dyslexia, Joe, you already know I got it wrong so many times, mate. You'd be surprised what some words I think. I ended up 200 miles out of my way once because I thought I was reading the right road signs. But that's another story. The biggest change, literally, if I took it down to one instant, get it wrong to get it right, I would have been a great believer of belief. You got to believe in yourself. I would have preached it. And I remember where I was. I remember who I was with. And I was driving back from Scarborough, and I'm going back, it must be, lose track now, the older I get. I was only in my 20s, 25, 26, something like that, 28 maybe. I wasn't older than 28. I was driving back, and I was talking about an event I was going to do, personal development event. And I had a company at the time called Mind Strength International, and we used to do corporate stuff and different things like that. I was on a course with a chap called Will Proudfoot from, he used to be a Conservative MP, but he had a Proudfoot School of Hypnosis and Psychotherapy. And I've been up there for about 2 weeks on a course, and I was traveling back. I was traveling back with my best man, who was the best man at my wedding. And we were debating some of the stuff we'd learned. And about a month beforehand, I'd done a course with a chap called Orland McGill. Now, Orland McGill, phenomenal guy. And I was lucky enough to get to work with him when he was 89 at Regent's College. And he was the guy who wrote the first encyclopedia on hypnosis. It was a massive book, only one ever written. But he wrote me on stage hypnosis. Now, I've seen Orland McGill take a pencil and touch somebody on the back of the hand and tell them that the pencil was a cigarette, even though they could see the pencil and a blister appear on somebody's hand. I've seen that in real time. So a lot of people go into the power of the mind, power of belief. And so a couple of things joined up. When I was at a course with Ormond, and there was a chap there who was doing part of it, and he said he was talking about comfort eating and about the power of belief. And I said, surely what we do is we change people's beliefs. And he said, no, you can't change a belief. I said, oh, you can. And it was sort of a debate. And I didn't debate it, but I said to him that, I don't do beliefs. I don't do thoughts. Thoughts are like snowflakes. I said, what I do is outcomes. I do success. So I will not be impeached or controlled by belief. Personally, in any area of my life. He said, that's just arrogance. And I said, no. But that piece and that was me, but I hadn't ever expressed it outside. But then I was driving back to Scarborough about a month later from the end of another course. I was with my best man, my best mate, and we were talking about this event. And I said, it can't be about belief. It can't be on hope. It can't be on fingers crossed, superstitious thinking. It can't be because, he said, well, what else is it going to be on? I said, it has to be real. It has to be true. He said, well, truth's different to everybody. I said, well, that's my right hand. I said, and to me, that's the truth. I said, you got any feeling or thought or anything that says otherwise? He went, no. I said, that's true. That was my pivotal moment. From that moment, inside, I knew the difference between what was real and what was a belief. Because if I have a belief, then I don't know what's real in my world. I'm not saying this to anybody else. So the same way I know my own name, the same way I know I'm going to draw my next breath, the same way I know that's my right hand, the same way I know I'm talking to the virtual world, they're all true statements. I only process on the truth. So when somebody says hope or different things like that, they can say what they want at free country. But my brain can't process it. So the pivotal moment for me was stepping off of belief entirely. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me and the worst thing at the same time. The reason being was everybody else was on belief. To the point, I done a talk at the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin, and I stood up in a packed house. I think it holds 150 people. And I was asked to do a talk on beliefs in business. And I said, I'm here tonight to do a talk on beliefs. I said, so I'm not going to go for the standard one. I'm going to go for the foundational ones. I said, in a moment, I'm going to make you a statement. I said, if you agree with the statement, please stand. If you disagree, remain seated. I said, my statement, bear in mind my language, my statement is the subconscious mind does not exist. If you agree with that statement, please stand. If you disagree, remain seated. And I said, now have a look around. I said, I'm the only one standing. So I said, is one person wrong when people agree with them? If so, does that make them right when people agree? If one person wrong when people disagree with them, does that make them right when they agree? So I'm so confident in what I say that I offer you €1,000 reward to prove me wrong. I said, the reward will stand to the day I draw my last breath. I said, all I ask is out of all the billions of autopsies, MRI scans, whatever scan will be invented, to show me the subconscious mind in a jar or virtually inside somebody. If not, it's a theory and it's a belief. However, it's a belief that controls 90 to 95% of every one of you. All I'm asking you to is to imagine it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, does that mean you get your full control? I don't do belief. And that was the biggest turning point. So my biggest failure was believing beliefs.
Well,
And my biggest transition was realizing they were a lie.
our last interview many moons ago, you said something which resonate with me. And I had to think about it after, was it's not believing, it's knowing. That's,
Right.
yeah, that's what sticks with me.
And if your frequency is right, the only thing I'd say on that, just for a nuance on the inside, this is that sometimes we believe our feelings. We know we're right because it feels right. However, how many of you made good decisions from a good feeling that turned out wrong?
Never.
You're a different breed, mate, because you've honed the frequency, and that's the thing. And like you said, it's very hard to communicate something you've experienced, tasted, smelt, lived, and you try to put language on it so others not hear you, get the frequency for them.
When you have that inner belief and you know what that is and it's undescribable, there's people that have killed people to find out what it is over the decades. If someone wants to join one of your, entrepreneurial or empowering groups, how can they sort of get in touch with you?
The easiest way is on LinkedIn. If they put Tunny-Ware in to LinkedIn,
We'll put a link up on the site as well for it.
you look up on Google, you'll find me. But the quickest way is through LinkedIn. Send me a message. I run loads of free events, whether it be challenges, development, or business networking.
Yeah, and you do the live LinkedIn sort of, so if people can jump on LinkedIn, they'll find one of an event coming up, or if they've missed one, they can find one.
I'm honoured to be on your podcast. I know you've been doing these a number of years, and it's my second time on it. Really appreciate being on. If you need me, you just got to message me.
Thanks, Lee, for coming on the show.
Grateful, buddy.
Getting it wrong to get it right.